The panic is impossible to hide now. Just weeks before Prince Harry is expected to fly to Birmingham, the one thing he has been fighting for, demanding, pushing, and battling over for years is still hanging in the air unresolved. Yet somehow, headlines suddenly started appearing everywhere claiming victory, claiming he had won, claiming security was finally coming back. But what if that celebration was built on smoke? What if the people closest to Harry accidentally exposed the truth before the palace ever had to?
Yeah.
That's the whole point. They want to be treated as royals. And that is the one thing they were told you can't do. You can't be inside or outside, just choose. So I think if Ravik decided to give them a royal protection, that would be a terrible, terrible mistake.
Harry is deeply unpopular, and he has been whining about security for 5 years in a manner that does not endear him to anyone.
If he really felt the way he says he felt about his family, that this is this older institution, he compares his father and brother's life to being in jail or trapped in a cage when he talked to Oprah Winfrey, then why would you set your child up for that by insisting they have a title?
Exactly.
Everyone just looked at each other with utter disgust. The words expressed to my source were, "We can't say too much, but Meghan was incapable of fitting in with anyone because she couldn't cope with following simple rules, as she felt her way was better."
He didn't have the balls to say, "No, I will not let you speak about my family that way, no matter how mad I am." And I think a lot of people see that and have that value of like, I don't really care what personal drama or fighting is going on. I still wouldn't want someone deliberately trying to ruin my brother or sister or parents' life or reputation or image in the public eye.
And Harry's presence in Britain is always a problem. That's the issue. Harry and Meghan and Harry are dynamite together.
The timing alone is suspicious. The closer the Birmingham appearance gets, the louder the victory narrative becomes. But look beneath the surface, and the story starts cracking apart almost immediately. Because despite all the dramatic reports suggesting Harry's battle was finally over, his own representatives quietly admitted something shocking. Nothing has changed. Nothing. The security situation remains exactly where it was. Suddenly, the triumphant headlines don't look like news anymore. They look like a desperate attempt to create momentum where none exists.
And the fact they don't give interviews to any other than people who they cultivate and control if they can, nobody ever asks them, do you regret having lied to Oprah Winfrey? Do you regret having lied on Netflix? And all the magazine interviews, don't you see what a terrible mistake you've made? And are you prepared to apologize? That, I think, is what we're waiting to hear.
And that's where the mystery deepens. Most people don't even realize this upcoming visit isn't the actual Invictus Games. Those are still far away. This is merely a warm-up event, a countdown celebration, a symbolic appearance. Yet even that small visit has become tangled in a bitter standoff over one issue that refuses to disappear: armed protection, automatic protection, the kind reserved for working royals, the kind Harry lost the moment he walked away from royal duties. Then something strange happened. Reports appeared suggesting the battle had effectively been won. The problem? The people supposedly benefiting from that victory immediately undercut the story.
Where the media headlines are getting really squirrely. This is not a win for Harry. This is not a reversal of his clear, decisive legal defeats. It is simply a reassessment for security that has been conducted for the first time in about 5 years.
Think about that contradiction for a second. One side is screaming victory from the rooftops. The other side is quietly saying they know nothing about any change. Those two things cannot both be true. So who benefits from pushing the win narrative? Who needs the public to believe progress has been made even when official confirmation remains missing?
To be a little bit more specific and clear here, Harry lost his legal challenges to the process used by Ravik. The press is framing the current situation as a win, which is problematic, only because he is ultimately achieving his goal of getting police protection, but he is going about it through administrative channels rather than
The answer may reveal more than anyone intended, because the real dispute was never about whether Harry receives protection during visits. He often does. The real fight has always been about something bigger: automatic entitlement, guaranteed protection, no questions asked, no assessments, no reviews, just the same privileges granted to active members of the the monarchy.
Contacted the Ravik offices. The way it is right now, 28 days notice, itinerary. We determine on a case-by-case basis exactly what you need. If the man says, my wife and children will be accompanying me, don't you believe that Ravik would be like, yes, you will have armed guards.
And that's where everything becomes explosive, because Harry wants the benefits connected to a role he no longer performs, the protection attached to duties he chose to leave behind. Meanwhile, reports continue suggesting Meghan and the children will not return to Britain until those guarantees are firmly documented. Suddenly, security stops looking like security. It starts looking like leverage. Look closer, and another uncomfortable question appears.
She uses the children to control Harry like divorced parents often do. She has Harry terrified that if the kids met their relatives, they would like them or love them or want to go back.
Why does this issue keep resurfacing whenever major royal events approach? Why does reconciliation always seem connected to demands, conditions, and negotiations? Behind all the public statements sits an unspoken hope, a dream scenario. King Charles standing beside Harry at future Invictus events, cameras flashing, headlines celebrating a royal reunion, a public healing of wounds that have dominated years of family conflict. But dreams and reality are often very different things. Then came another development that reignited the entire debate. For months, one of the strongest arguments presented in support of Harry's security concerns centered around an alleged stalker incident. The story spread rapidly. The details sounded alarming. The narrative seemed designed to prove that danger followed him whenever he stepped onto British soil. But almost immediately, questions began appearing. The more people examined the claims, the more complicated the story became.
Lone stalker, which is kind of funny that this is the reason why this has been reinstated. He must be very scared of this lady. It's very common for famous people and public figures to deal with a stalker occasionally, and this seems to be the only justification to really reconsider and approve automatic protection for him.
Critics started pointing to photographs, familiar faces, previous interactions. Some questioned whether the threat was being exaggerated. Others compared it to earlier controversies that had already divided public opinion. And suddenly, what was supposed to strengthen the security argument started generating entirely new doubts. Because if the threat was truly as serious as described, why were so many details still being challenged? Why were so many observers unconvinced? And why does every answer seem to create 3 more questions? The deeper you look, the stranger this story becomes. And what comes next may be the most damaging revelation of all. What makes this entire saga even more astonishing is what happened after the lawsuits finally ended. For years, Harry presented himself as a man frozen out by an unfair system. For years, the narrative suggested palace forces, government officials, and royal insiders were deliberately denying him what he believed he deserved. But then a detail emerged that changed everything. A detail so simple yet so devastating that it threatens to rewrite the entire story. Harry spent years challenging the policy itself, years insisting the system was broken, years arguing the process had treated him unfairly. Yet all along, there was another route sitting quietly in plain sight, a route that reportedly could have allowed reassessments and reviews without turning the entire issue into a public war. Suddenly, the victim narrative starts looking far less straightforward. Because if alternatives existed, why weren't they pursued? Why choose years of headlines, legal battles, public grievances, and family tension instead? The answer may be uncomfortable. Some observers believe the lawsuit itself became the mission, not the protection, not the security. Validation, recognition, proof that the institution was wrong and Harry was right. But when the appeals collapsed and the legal road ended, something extraordinary happened. The entire argument shifted. The same system once described as unfair suddenly became acceptable again. The same process once attacked now appeared useful. And that contradiction is impossible to ignore. Then the focus moved elsewhere, away from courtrooms, away from security assessments, straight toward Meghan and a controversy that ignited an entirely different wave of outrage. A social media post, a newborn baby, a joke that many people instantly felt crossed the line. What should have been a friend's joyful family moment suddenly became another headline centered on Meghan herself. Critics exploded. Supporters struggled to defend it. And once again, the same accusation returned. Everything somehow becomes about them. What made the reaction even stronger was the contradiction people immediately spotted. For years, public messaging emphasized child privacy, protection, safety, safety, responsibility online. Yet here was a friend's child appearing publicly while Meghan's own children remain carefully shielded. Whether fair or unfair, people notice the inconsistency immediately, and when audiences detect hypocrisy, they rarely let it go. But that controversy was merely the beginning, because everywhere critics looked, they believed they saw the same pattern repeating itself. Charity appearances followed by complaints, invitations followed by disappointment, expectations followed by frustration. Whether those criticisms are entirely justified or not, they continue surfacing with remarkable consistency, and consistency creates narratives of its own. Then attention returned to Invictus, the very project Harry has often described as his proudest achievement. Yet even there, questions began multiplying. Some observers claimed the focus no longer rested primarily on veterans. Others argued the spotlight had shifted towards celebrity appearances, media moments, and personal branding. Fair or not, those perceptions continue spreading, and perception can become reality faster than facts. The most painful questions, however, are not about security, publicity, or charity tours. They are about the future, about Archie and Lilibet, about what happens when they eventually grow older and begin asking questions about where they came from, about what they missed, about the family connections that never fully formed, about cousins they barely know, about traditions they never experienced, about a royal world they heard about but rarely touched. And then comes the contradiction that critics believe sits at the center of everything. Harry has repeatedly described royal life as restrictive and damaging, yet titles remain important, status remains important, royal connections remain important. If the institution caused so much pain, why continue fighting for ties to it? Why preserve symbols connected to something allegedly so harmful? It is a question opponents raise constantly because they believe no convincing answer exists. Now, another clock is quietly ticking in the background. The future monarchy, the future reign, the future role of royal titles. As discussions about a slimmer monarchy continue, speculation grows louder about what happens next. Which roles survive? Which titles remain? Which connections endure? Nobody knows for certain, but uncertainty itself fuels endless debate. And that brings everything back to where this story began. A flight approaching, security questions unresolved, headlines claiming victories that remain unconfirmed, public relations battles colliding with legal realities, family wounds still open, trust still broken, narratives competing against narratives. Every new development creating another layer of mystery, because beneath all the noise sits one unavoidable truth. The story isn't ending. Not yet. The court battles may be over. The statements may have been issued, the headlines may have moved on, but the tension remains. And as Birmingham approaches, one question continues hanging over everything. Was this ever really about security at all? Or was it always about something much bigger?